Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Silver Savage podcast. Once again, I am not in my studio, but I'm in our camper, which is becoming my studio away from my studio. Actually, got to work on some decor, I guess. I know I'm recording this on cinematic view, so you don't see detail as much. But aside from a fireplace and a TV hanging, there's not much going on here. So I got to come up with some stuff. I actually have a rifle rack I'm going to put behind me, some other stuff. It's functional for when I go camping, obviously, but also make it a little bit more savagey looking as I record more and more podcasts here, especially on the move. So I am in my camper for a reason. I actually went on a weekend camping, and this is not today's topic of the podcast, but I want to share with you because I think it does matter for us silver savages, especially as we talk about relationships and the importance of relationships with our family, with our nucleus cell of our family, our spouses, and our kids. So one thing that I started a couple years ago, Tyler and I discussed the whole idea that our kids seem to not appreciate presents as much, meaning we give them a gift on their birthday or a holiday or whatnot. They'll get excited for about 5 minutes. We're lucky if they actually ever play with it or do anything with it. And for the most part, that enthusiasm goes away and there's certainly no lasting memory attached to it. So what we decided to do is stop the whole present thing. They get a couple presents over the year, for certain holidays that it's customary, for example, Hanukkah, Christmas, but they don't get them for birthday. Because my philosophy is if they need anything, they'll probably get it throughout the year anyways. I don't have to wait for their birthday to buy them clothes or to buy them a book or whatnot, right? So how do we make their birthday special? And my thing was always, let's create memories. Because I'll be honest, I don't remember half the shit that my parents ever gave to me. But I remember every single time my father came as a chaperone on a field trip when I was at school, right? So memories stick, they last. And that's what they will remember, I hope, right? So for their birthdays, what we decided we're doing is the child gets to pick where we go camping. They pick a movie we get to watch in the camper as a family, what they want as a meal. So, for example, this last night was steaks because that's what my second to youngest son requested. And we get to hang up as a family, right? This camping trip actually did not go as planned. The camping site we were hoping to go to notified us that electricity is out, which would mitigate the ability to watch a movie on the TV or use the microwave. Two very essential things for my planned trip. We could do everything else, right? I don't need electricity for running half the stuff in the camper. I can sort of boondock, or I can go old style, start a fire, stay in the camper to sleep, and have a great time. Anyways, but because we promised him a movie, we promised him certain things, then we wanted to do it. So we actually came back home, and we camped in our front yard. We got the full experience. We stayed in the camper overnight. We hung out as a family. We essentially went a confined space together, and it was great. So that's what we do. We also try to attach some sort of a skill with it. So when I go camping with my kids, I like to teach them either trauma care, orienteering, right? Do some sort of physical element to it. Build their character and their skill set in the process as well. We didn't get much of that going this weekend, but as a general, it's just another opportunity to pass on those savage skills to the next generation. So anyways, that's why I'm in the camper. That was a long intro, but with no further ado, let's get into the episode. Cool. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about something called the OODA loop. And most of you, if you're a savage, you heard the term before. If you haven't, welcome. OODA, spelled OODA, is an acronym, stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. It was a term coined by Colonel Boyd, was an Air Force officer, started as a pilot during Korea, then during Vietnam was an instructor, and then he was at the Pentagon for a long time and teaching and developing theories to win the next war. He was also instrumental in designing a bunch of aircrafts really, but the two that is mainly known for are the F-15 and the F-16. He was not a big fan of the F-14, for example, with its variable geometric wing shape and so forth. And there's a whole a whole sort of science behind it. The guy kept learning. He was an engineer by training. Honestly, his favorite book that he resonated with the most was The Art of War by Sun Tzu, which automatically makes me like him even more. But the OODA loop was one of his most known theories. Certainly not the most important one, but certainly the one is known for the most. And in his presentation, it's not that simple of a 4 phases loop. It's actually more of a spiral, and it has some 37 different stages to it. But we're going to stick to what's commonly known as the OODA loop. And what does that mean? What Boyd observed is that typically when 2 fighter pilots got into a dogfight, they want to engage first, typically won. And the reason being is the second pilot kept playing catch up, right? He kept trying to readjust to the attack that he's absorbing and then adjust his action. So he was always reactive in nature, while the initial pilot, the one that typically ended up winning, was proactive, right? And was initiating the process. And the idea behind the whole OODA loop and what Boyd was trying to teach the pilots is you got to be the faster one and the one to get into that loop quicker so you take control of the fight. So why am I covering this? Today I want to concentrate more on the self-defense element, but understand that there's other aspect to the OODA loop that we can implement in our life. But let's start with self-defense, which is obviously something that I am big on. The whole idea of combat, I've been researching it for years, I teach it for years, right? And the idea of the OODA loop is paramount, right? If I get attacked, right, and understand that in my world it's very hard for me to articulate being proactive or preemptive, right? A, because of the nature of society. B, there's some legal limitations, specifically if I work under the auspice of being a police officer, okay, going and punching someone in the face because I think they're going to punch me in a second and I want to be preemptive. It's hard to articulate, right? So I'm typically being reactive to begin with. That does not mean that I lost the initiative. That just means that I need to adjust the thought process of the attacker to now make me the attacker and not the defender, right? I want to take control of the fight physiologically and psychologically. So what do I mean by that? If somebody's coming at me, and let's use a knife attack as an example, right? And they're coming with a stabbing motion towards me, right? So their loop, their mind is thinking, I'm going to stab BK, I'm going to kill BK, right? And my initial response is going to be to block that punch or that stab, because it doesn't matter what I do. If I did not address that initial attack, okay, I'm still going to get stabbed and probably killed. So I still need to do that. In our system, we're very big on the natural responses to stress, right? And most of us, assuming your neurological connections are fine, if I was to throw something towards you, like a dodgeball, you'd probably flinch. We see that a lot with car accident victims, right? If I respond as a medic to a site of a motor vehicle collision, I'll typically see bruisings and lacerations on a person's forearms because people will bring their hands up to protect vitals. Prehistoric trait that our body is designed to do to protect our face, our throat, and upper chest area, right? Which is where our vital organs sit, right? So the body's going to do that, right? Whether I want to or not. And it's so fast that it typically will beat the deployment of an airbag, right? So every martial art out there that tries to go against it and teach something fancier than just flinching is probably setting you up for failure. We're talking hundreds of thousands of repetitions to try to override a reflex. And even then, I'm not sure that's possible. Where true stress comes up, your body's still going to revert to whatever it knows, right? So I'm going to defend that initial stab attack by flinching. I'll probably still getting cut, but hopefully I get cut in my arm and not stabbed in my neck. Okay, so I'll survive that. But now I need to, whatever extent possible, I need to take control of the situation. If that guy's OODA loop says stab BK, stab BK, stab BK, I need to give them something new to think about. Okay, because remember that the loop observe, orient, decide, and act. It's exactly what it does, right? It observes the environment, orients itself based on whatever intelligence it gathers, right? Comes up with a plan and executes that plan. Again, observe, orient, decide, and act, right? So his loop was on, he observed me, he came up with a plan, and he's trying to attack me, right? That's his OODA loop, and he's going to keep going on that loop until I introduce a new variable. And that new variable is usually going to be a very resolute and violent counterattack. It doesn't matter what it is. People overthink it, right? I can punch him to the face, I can kick him in the balls, I can do whatever is available to me at that point in time, depending on the angles of attack and so forth, whatever I can do at that point. For me, if the attack is overhand and I flinch, the most natural response would be a hammer fist towards their jaw. Listen, I'm not trying to end the fight there. If I knock them out, beautiful, extra bonus points. But really, all I'm trying to do is reset that OODA loop. Because now his brain has a new variable that it has to account for, a new piece of intelligence, right? So he has to re-observe, reorient, come up with a new plan, and execute said new plan. That is the time that I needed to take control of the fight. Now I got control of that loop, and I can keep going. Right? So if I already flinched and already counterattack, now I need to keep the momentum going and keep those attacks going or disengage depending on the situation, right? So as a general rule, since I carry a gun, my goal would be to create space. Space equals time to where I can draw my firearm and shoot, right? Not always is that available for me, right? The confinement of the space may not allow me. I do not want to introduce a gun too soon, because even if I shot the person but I didn't create the space, I'm still going to get stopped. So I killed him, but I died myself. So was it worth it in the end of the day, right? Also, remember that the gun is not always the best tool for the job, okay? Think about backdrop, right? So if I'm in a very densely populated area and I shot a person and that round traveled through that person and killed somebody else, or let's say I missed because of the stress and so forth and I shot somebody else, right? Who's going to jail? Still me. So again, the gun is not always the right tool. But given the opportunity, I want to create enough space to where I can reassess, draw my gun, and come up with the next step, which typically is going to be shooting them, but doesn't have to be, right? If I can't disengage, let's say I'm in a confined space, I'll use the extreme situation of you being attacked inside an elevator, right? There's nowhere for you to go. I can't draw my gun necessarily because I don't have the time to do so. I just got to get as violent and as aggressive as I possibly can. I'm going to keep hitting and hitting and hitting. And listen, a lot of systems teach disarms. We teach disarms, right? But I'll be the first one to admit, if you hit someone explosively and aggressively enough, especially if you can control the arm that holds the knife, okay, then they're going to end up dropping the knife anyways, right? Before I even get to the point of disarming them, right? Disarm has some failures to it, or some potential points of failure, because now all my attention is on the tool and not on the person. They still have another arm. They may have other tools, right? And I'm losing sight of that if I'm focusing on the knife. Also, it's going to require fine motor skills, right? Dexterity, which, think about the context. You're being attacked with a blade. Adrenaline is dumping, right? Everything physiologically is to the extreme. You may not have that dexterity. You're sweaty, you're bloody, right? Will you be able to even execute that skill? So oftentimes we teach people skills that are irrelevant or inappropriate. We teach disarm in very specific situations, right? Very extreme situations where I know that if I do not take that blade away from that individual, I'm going to end up being killed. That's the only context ever in which we teach it. But I digress. To get back to the point, we use a knife as an example, but it doesn't have to be. If I'm being choked or placed in a headlock, right? The analogy that I like using is, did you ever ran your pinky toe into the corner of a table or bed, right? And I bet you did, right? And the response is usually dropping the F-bomb like 17 times, sitting on that corner of that bed or on the table, and your whole world is that pinky toe, right? That's what I need to do to this assailant. Whatever it is that the attack is, it can be, again, a choke, a headlock, an attack with a blade, with a stick, okay? Whatever it is, I need to create so much pain, wherever, however, to where they cannot think about attacking me anymore, because now they're thinking about this new piece of intelligence, again, OODA loop, right? They're thinking about the pain that I caused them. And understand that pain is temporary. That does not mean the fight is necessarily over, right? But now that gave me the opportunity to take control of the fight. And now we're working on my OODA loop, and I'm not reacting to their OODA loop. So just a way how that works in my everyday life in the sense of self-defense, right? So also, if I want to be preemptive, situational awareness is key, right? The whole idea of the OODA loop begins with observing and orienting. So if I walk around oblivious to what's going on around me, I'm already putting myself behind the 8 ball. But if I am constantly aware, I can constantly see as things may develop and go in a certain direction, and I can either choose to remove myself from that situation. That's my decision and my action, right? Or I can decide to engage, and at that point, I'm again putting myself ahead in that time loop sequence. So observe, orient, decide, and act. It's the way that you should carry yourself every day. It's the way that you should respond to any sort of violent attack. But is it limited to self-defense? And my idea and my thought is that it isn't. There's certainly a lot of other applications where I can use it. I'm gonna step offline for a second and share a joke with you guys. And I'm not a comedian, so I apologize in advance. But this one resonated with me and certainly speaks to the OODA loop. So if your wife or your significant other is super angry with you, try this next time. Take a big towel, drape it over her shoulder, tie it around the neck, and say that now she's super angry, right? Maybe she'll laugh, maybe you'll die, right? Either way, the idea is distracting them and breaking that OODA loop. But again, that joke aside, I don't know if you laughed or not. I don't know how funny I am. I'm not very funny. But that aside, there's certainly other elements to it. So I'm gonna discuss two with you right now. The first one is business, right? When you guys make any kind of business negotiation or any kind of transaction that's about to take place, typically on the larger scale, the person you are negotiating against is in some sort of an OODA loop, right? Based on their understanding of the situation, based on their perceived decision and action plan, right? So their OODA loop in terms of business. My goal as someone that's trying to advocate and promote my own agenda, right, is to break their thought process so they can see things my way, and hopefully I can gain control over that negotiation process, possibly even completely change their mind. So I need to introduce new variables. So from a sales point, if somebody is reluctant of buying something from me, right? So let's say a membership or whatnot. So let's say their opposition is based off of cost, or they don't have enough time to join a self-defense school. Then I need to introduce a new variable that will break their thought process, right? I need to put things in terms, for example, the cost associated with them not joining, right? What the potential losses, how prioritizing things that are important to us in life, we can make time for everything, right? So my goal in a negotiation is always to introduce new variables to break that OODA loop that a person is on. If a person comes in with a negative mindset about a transaction, I need to break that thought process if I have any intention of coming ahead, right? So certainly in business, and the bigger the negotiation, are you selling a membership, which is a pretty small process in a sense, but if you talk about something larger, like buying a whole business from somebody or negotiating real estate, right? The idea is that, again, I need to come in a countermeasure to whatever offer is being put in by breaking that OODA loop the person I'm negotiating against is in, and introducing new variables that will turn things in my favor. But the other one, and arguably the most important one, is can I use the OODA loop to change my own state of mind? And this is the thing, we tend to get into cycles of our own. And I'm not going to get into all mindfulness and law of attraction and that sort of stuff, right? But we typically propagate whatever it is that we're thinking about. If we are in a shitty mood, or we concentrate on everything that's going bad in our life, whether it being business, finances, relationships, whatever it is, chances are we're just going to bring more of that, because we cannot see a solution. Everything is bleak around us, and we are going to put ourselves in a downward spiral that's a very negative, and it's going to be very hard for us to break. So I need to consciously break that OODA loop my brain is on. I need to start focusing on the positive that's going on, right? Introducing new variables. I'm sure that no matter what is going on in your life, you can find one thing that is good, right? And if it is if it's nothing more than you being alive, right? You woke up this morning. That's a positive. Not everybody woke up this morning, right? So that's already a positive, right? You were able to get out of bed, right? Not everybody can get out of bed, right? That's another positive. You had food for breakfast, right? Okay, not everybody had food for breakfast, right? That's another positive, right? You have a bed that you slept in and a roof over your head. That's outstanding, right? Be thankful and grateful for that, right? That's a positive. Not everybody has that, right? Plenty of people are sleeping on the street with no roof over their head. So again, I'm obviously going to the extreme, but even when things are not going great business-wise, is there something in your business that is going well, right? Is it the support of the staff that you have? Is it the loyalty of your clients? Is it the service that you're giving actually has benefit to others and you see the value in it and some other people may see the value in it, right? That's certainly a positive. So I need to break my own OODA loop. And I'm using business as an example, but that goes to everything, right? You have issues in your relationship, right? It's very easy to get into that negative mindset of, well, that person just sucks and I don't know I even bother staying in this relationship. I should just call it quit, right? Where I could easily say, well, that person has a lot of positive attributes to them, which I may not be able to see at the moment because I'm angry or upset, right? But if I think about it for a second, there's a lot of things about that individual that I do appreciate, that I do love, okay? And start focusing on those, and that will change your mindset. It doesn't have to be a relationship with a significant other. It can be a relationship with a child, with a parent, with a friend, with a community, right? There's always ways to shift your mindset. About your health, right? Last week's podcast was all about taking action in terms of taking control of your own healthy lifestyle, from diet and nutrition to exercises, right? And the reality is that we get in a rut, right? If you miss the workout, there is a high chance that you will miss next day's workout, because why bother at that point? We started getting into that negative loop, right? Again, OODA loop. We observe, orient, decide, and act. And at this point, we're orienting ourselves based on the fact that we already missed the workout and we're already overweight and unhealthy. So why even bother, right? And that is the OODA loop that the brain is on. So we need to break that. We can go for a walk around the neighborhood. Doesn't have to be anything excessive. Two things will likely happen. One of them is you hopefully break that rut and start getting into the positive cycle, right? And then the next day you go for a slightly longer walk, right? Or you realize the importance of health and you actually see that you do have it in you. More likely what's going to happen, the second attribute, is you go for a 5-minute walk and you're like, you know what, I'm already out walking. Let me make it a little bit longer. Okay, well, let me add some push-ups there in the middle, right? And all of a sudden, you're going to do the full workout you intended on doing just because you got yourself started. And guess what that is? Breaking your own OODA loop, right? Your mind was on one process and you broke it just by taking action. Observe, orient, decide, and act. So a little short podcast here on the importance of OODA loop, certainly in self-defense, but also as applies to life. Take it to it. Next time you catch yourself in a bad situation, whether you have to defend yourself or whether it is something at work or something in your personal life, just see what variable you can change to shift things in your favor. I hope this helps. As always, I want to leave you with this. If you guys are interested in some more coaching, this is certainly some of the tools we work on with our group. Feel free to reach out to me, direct message me, and let me know, and I'll send you more information. And even if you don't, I would love for you guys to comment on this post and give me one thing that you believe that you can use the OODA loop to change for the better in your life. Until next time, stay savage.